Welcome to the first episode of Brave View Podcast, the podcast that discusses current issues and ideas, providing a student perspective.
Today we wanted to discuss the topic of AP classes, dual enrollment, honors, and regular classes. Today talking is...
So I'm Deanna.
I'm Tiffany.
I'm Destiny.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Annabella.
I'm Emma.
And today we're going to be talking about AP classes and dual enrollment. First question is, what does everyone think about AP classes and dual enrollment, like in general?
So in my opinion, I think that they're both good for different reasons. I think that for the most part, AP classes are the way to go if you're trying to get into a certain college, maybe out of state, or one that you really want to get into specifically. But dual enrollment is also beneficial if you're wanting to do something in state, because all of the credits would transfer over. So that's what I think on dual enrollment and AP.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I like AP classes because they offer you the opportunity to try and get into bigger colleges, ones that are tougher to get into, versus dual enrollment, which is really good for if you're trying to get into the workforce quickly, or if you're going for like the technical program and trying to do something in the more technical aspect. There's lots of options, and I like that for our students.
I agree with both Tiffany and Patrick. However, I think that the reason why I'm more inclined to AP classes is because it embeds the classes within the curriculum, even though they are college courses, which is what you'd be doing in dual enrollment. However, like I previously mentioned, it is embedded and implemented within the curriculum in your own school. So you don't have to get a computer and take a computer class. You don't have to go off of campus. It's right there, and you can embed it within every other of your classes.
I agree, but I feel like dual enrollment gives students more experience. Like AP classes is more of like exactly how it says, a class. It's just more rigorous. But it's dual enrollment, on the other hand, gives you have to go to a different college, and you're like putting yourself as a student into that type of environment and that type of workforce. And I feel like it better prepares you for what's next in life.
I kind of agree with that statement because with AP classes, like, yes, you're like at your school, it's like easier to get to, and you also have like a smaller classroom environment. But with dual enrollment, you can actually like experience what a college classroom is like. And instead of having a teacher who's maybe taught the subject for 2 or 3 years, you can have a professor who's learned it through a bunch of different, just through college and just other experiences, and probably knows the topic a little bit better. And also, like, you can sit in a classroom with other college students and just understand what the whole dynamic is about.
So for insight, who here does not take an AP class? Who's sitting here doesn't take an AP class? And who does dual enrollment?
Me.
Okay. So for the next question, I kind of want to get different insight, different opinions. And if you have anything like personal experience from any classes or dual enrollment AP that you think is different than most, like for example, I take 3 AP classes, and I feel like a lot of what I hear about those classes is like a lot of people complain about workload and homework. But for me personally, like I haven't really experienced anything that deterred me from taking them next year or the year after. You know what I mean? I feel like there's like a stigma towards AP classes that it's a lot more work, when I think it just depends on the person and like being aware of what you sign up for.
I personally disagree. Last year, because I was in the magnet program, we were mandatory. We had to take AP Human Geography. And I really, really struggled with that class. And I've always liked history. It wasn't the subject that was the issue. For me, it was the workload. And like how Deanna said, maybe her current class right now is different, like its system is different. But for the AP class that I was in, I did not do good. Like I passed because I had to work hard, and I struggled to get that good grade. But it took a lot out of me throughout the whole year, which is why this year I chose not to take an AP class. And I understand that that'll probably take like certain opportunities away from me by getting, like, if I take these classes now, I won't have to take them in college. But I feel as though kids shouldn't be pressured to take these classes because they currently they will be hurting the student rather than benefiting them. And I feel like that's more important now than what you're going to do in like 4 years concerning education, because there's always other things you can do to get that knowledge or to do whatever you want with your career path. I just don't think AP classes are something that needs to be like forced or mandatory on a certain student.
Yeah, I completely agree with the whole AP classes are a very heavy workload for some students, and I can understand that. And that's mainly the reason why I started to do dual enrollment this year, and I just finished my first semester at Valencia. And it's completely different than what an AP class is, and yet they're still considered the same college credit. Dual enrollment, I would say, in my opinion, really does immerse you into the whole college experience. You're hooked up with a team of advisors that help you throughout your career, and talking and interacting with professors that have been doing that subject for over 10 years really helps you understand, and they give you a lot more insight than a teacher who's working at a public high school and teaching an AP class that might not know it as well as a professor. So that's why I would say dual enrollment.
I definitely acknowledge the fact that AP isn't at the same, like obviously it's a lot more work, but I feel like what helped me through a lot of my AP classes was just like keeping in mind that it's weighted differently. It's on a 5.0 scale, so even if you don't, like if you get a B, for example, that still goes in as a 4.0, which is really good. And it gives a lot of opportunities, like scholarship opportunities and stuff like that. But I do completely acknowledge, like, it depends on them. I know some people just aren't good test takers. And for me, like, I hate how that sounds, but test taking usually isn't, like, something that deters me or, like, stresses me out too bad to the, you know what I mean? I don't know, it just says 5.0 here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure honors is 5.0 and AP is 6.0.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then I'll start over. Never mind. Just don't worry about that part.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, like, I definitely agree that AP shouldn't be required, because I think that the students who want to go above and beyond and maybe do that extra work shouldn't be in the same classes as people who are just doing it because they have to do it. I think that classes should be a chance for you to show off to colleges and to future employers that you are more dedicated, maybe have better time management skills, maybe you're just better with those subjects. So I think that AP classes shouldn't be required, but that students should definitely really consider it, because those are strong indicators of your success in the future, and they help build up essential skills like that time management skill that I mentioned.
Yeah, I just think it sucks though that people hear AP and they start like getting discouraged or not putting in effort because they assume that it's not possible. Like I've seen like in my classes, people just like for the AP human exam, like I saw people as soon as they got the paper in front of them, like put their heads down and just not attempt, or like not even just limited to AP classes, but like the PSAT, where people just hear a name and kind of like give it the connotation that it's hard or they can't do it, and I don't know, I think it sucks.
I think I kind of agree with Deanna where, like, if you are in an AP class, whether you want to or not, like, you should at least try, because you never know how well you're going to do. And I will admit that, I mean, going into high school, I was kind of skeptical about AP. I thought it was going to be, like, super difficult. And I personally didn't think that AP Human Geography was the hardest class. I actually feel like I learned a lot, and I, like, did pretty good on the exam. I don't know, I just thought it was a pretty good class, but I think it also depends on what kind of AP you take, because like Patrick said, like, you shouldn't be required, but I feel like with everyone else taking all the other AP classes, like, you feel like you should at least take one every year. And I will say that because of that, like, I have taken like other AP classes that I haven't felt so interested in, and like now I'm starting to see if you're not into it, then it's harder for you because you don't feel passionate about the work or you just don't want to learn about it. So I think it's also a matter of like, you shouldn't feel pressure because other people are doing it, because then you just won't do as well. And so I just think personally from my experience that you should only do it if you feel good about it.
For me, going into high school, I had already known people who were in 9th grade while I was in 8th grade telling the younger students, hey, AP Human Geography is going to be hard. You might want to drop out of it, or if you want to keep doing the class, know it's going to be tough. And so I already entered high school with that mindset, and I do believe that started me off on the wrong foot, but I genuinely tried, and I had always had good grades, so that's not what the problem is. It's that, like, there wasn't really any problem. It's just that some people can't handle the workload, or some people can't grasp the topic, and that's not something that a student should be punished for, as in they should be allowed to get out of that class if they feel the need to. And I felt like that was something that wasn't really offered, like expressed to the students when in the 9th grade year, and to students now. And I think that's something that needs to be implemented, because they shouldn't have to go through something like that.
So, like, yeah, we've all seen students who are just taking an AP class because they heard, oh yeah, this is an easy AP class, it'll boost my GPA. And, like, those students, they don't really care about, like, what's going on, which I think is, like, it's another example of students who are taking an AP class because they're required to do it. Those students are just taking it because they want it to look good for when they're applying to colleges. They don't actually care about some of the things that they're learning. And then you see students who are really passionate about the class that they're taking. Like, that's what they want to do when they grow up. That's what they're into. And you see a total difference between the two people. And you can usually see, like, students who normally don't do well in school, but they're really passionate about that AP class, they usually do well, even though they wouldn't normally in other classes. And students who are really smart but are just taking class just to take it, they don't usually do as well because they don't really care. So I think that we should definitely treat AP classes not as something that is like, oh, I need to do this, but as something that we should be doing because we want to do it, because it gives us opportunities in life.
Again, I have to say I disagree. Not one AP class I've taken, I've been like, man, I love this class. I think once a week I thought about, like, dude, I'm switching out this AP class. I'm not doing this anymore, because I cannot name a single class that I've sat there and been like, I love this curriculum. Like, this is what I want to do when I'm older. But I kind of understand the benefits that come with it. And, like, obviously AP classes are stressful. Like, again, I've thought about once a week, like, just dropping them and, like, going the other direction, because they suck sometimes. But I feel like they have a lot of benefits, and I feel like it kind of, for me personally, outweighs it. And I 110% see everyone else's point of view, and I think I understand that at the end of the year, I know a lot of, like, one thing that deters a lot of people from taking AP classes is the fact that your college credit lies in that one test at the end of the year, and it, like, sucks having to recall all that information for one, like, test. You have to sit for hours and hours, like, staring at a sheet of paper trying to remember something you learned 10 months ago. But I feel like at the same time, like, I don't know, I see a lot of benefits, I think. But we've been on this one question for a long time, so I'm going to switch it. The next question is personal accounts. How has taken, whether you're sitting here for AP or for dual enrollment, how has either affected both negatively or positively your high school career?
Well, I think, like everyone has been saying, I don't necessarily believe that AP classes should be something that's forced or something that should be mandatory. However, from personal experience, I have not currently done dual enrollment, but I have done AP classes. And for me personally, coming in as a freshman, I think it really allowed me to build up character in a different way than one would think personality-wise. But I think being thrown in to such a higher order thinking class, and yes, struggling and having difficulties, but being able to understand that you need to have time management skills, like Patrick said, being able to understand that if you don't fully comprehend something, you yourself need to take the initiative and go get tutoring or go study extra hard, maybe harder than somebody else might have to because they simply understand it. And I think that has all kind of accumulated and in turn become something that I'm truly grateful for, which is building up my character as a student. And now that I take more AP classes than I did last year, I feel better prepared, and I feel better prepared to go on to college because I have talked to a lot of people who are currently in college, and despite the fact that you're not necessarily immersed in a lecture hall with other people and other students, you still are immersed in the harder curriculum, and you need to be able to get the good grade on the test, but by you doing the work yourself and not depending on the teacher themselves.
Concerning the AP classes that Annabella was talking about, I have to really agree with what she was saying about that. For me, was the only positive thing about the AP class that I received. I do believe that my character changed, and I knew that before going into high school, I didn't have these qualities such as working harder, taking like the initiative to go and do things that would benefit me. Whether it would or not, I still tried. And I know that when I took that class and I struggled and I knew what I had to do in order to fix my grade, I knew that changed me because now I'm seeing that reflect on myself today. I'll go into tutoring for my other classes, and even though I don't take any AP classes nor do I do enrollment, I still have those traits from that class because it impacted me so well.
All right, so I know a lot of people, like I think everyone sitting here has had a different experience. I think we've all taken AP at least 1 year. So I think we all had a very different experience, different teachers. So how do you think, without naming names, we're not trashing teachers, we're just talking about how you think teachers could change the experience of taking an AP or doing okay. First off, I think definitely being more informed on AP classes. I know that, like, if you haven't noticed, I just keep saying benefits because I really don't understand everything AP classes can do for you. And a lot of things I have learned about AP classes has not came from the mouth of a teacher or even a guidance counselor. Like, it's stuff I've learned through, like, looking it up on my own or, like, my friends telling me. So I do think that students can make much better decisions if they knew what came with taking AP classes versus dual enrollment, and kind of, like, I also think that it being a required course for magnet students in freshman year, like, it's kind of stressful to not really know what you're walking into and being forced to do that. Like, you don't know the workload, you don't know the curriculum, you don't know how it's gonna help you in the future because they don't tell you all that stuff. So I do think, like, why some AP classes get such a bad reputation is because students were walking in blindly and didn't know what they were getting themselves into.
Yeah, I'd agree. A lot of students do walk in blindly to AP classes, which is why I think that certain teachers are better at being AP teachers than others. Like, a lot of us had this one teacher last year that I'm sure really, like, prepared us because he was constantly going on about not having to, like, worry so much about your grades because you're on a higher scale than if you were taking a regular class, and how it's not about, like, the finer points right now because you can always work on those things. You have the whole year to work towards that AP test, and how the AP test can really override how well or how poorly you do during the school year, because it's not a test of how long you can keep up the A. It's more so a test of if you know everything that you're supposed to know when you're supposed to know it.
Not only do I think that high school teachers play a really important role, high school AP teachers play a really important role in how a child may or may not succeed in the class. I agree with what Deanna was saying about how kids need to be more prepared. And I feel like when I was in middle school, our guidance counselors really, like, talked to us about certain topics, whether it wasn't related to AP classes, but I think they need to implement that. Like, you can gather kids who you know are in a magnet program and will be going into a magnet program the next year and explain to them how this class is going to work because it's going to be mandatory for them. And I feel like that's something that would help a lot of kids, especially, like, my past stuff. I know, like, that's something I really wanted, and I had talked to her, but she didn't even know, like, everything about AP classes. I think everybody needs to be, teachers, staff members, students need to be more educated on AP classes and be able to prepare everybody for what's to come the next year in their next classes.
I would agree with what Destiny said along with Deanna and Patrick, but I think a personal way of I guess, executing the goal that you guys just mentioned is really just outlining what's entailed within an AP class. Now, it doesn't have to be necessarily specifically related to the curriculum, because I know even during the summer, teachers are working hard to get their lesson plans ready for the upcoming school year, and the curriculum always changes, especially with College Board being such a higher up, as it has this year, specifically with AP World. But I think being able to create some sort of outline entailing what exactly you are going to need to do as a student, what is expected of you, what the overall, your deadlines are going to be, what tutoring is available, all those things, all those resources that are provided. I think you should be able to know that beforehand, because I think that enables you to make the right decision on whether or not you yourself as a student are going to be capable to do the class itself.
Yeah, I think personally, definitely like students need to be like coming into AP knowing what they're going to be doing and kind of an outline of what you're learning, how the homework's going to be working, how the tests are, because I definitely feel like going into AP, like I just want to know like it's hard and that's it. And I think that's kind of bad, because like when you're kind of clueless about something, you worry about it more and question it, and so that definitely has an effect on students when they're starting AP classes and they don't really understand what they are or what they're going to be doing in them. And along with what Deanna asked about teachers, I think definitely, like, I mean, obviously, the more students that pass the class, the better. Basically shows off how the teacher is. And so I do think in AP you definitely need to take more initiative in yourself about learning things and studying on your own. But I do also think that a good teacher can definitely impact a student and like a class in general, because especially if the teacher's been teaching that subject for many years, they can definitely know the facts down hard and just be like, hey, I know this is going to be hard for you guys, but I'm going to help you through it. And I've had a teacher last year for AP Human who definitely like was encouraging, but also like made us work hard and like showed us that it's okay if you mess up every once in a while, but they clearly knew the material and clearly were ready to prepare us. And I mean, I think my class did pretty good, so I think it's definitely has some effect on the teacher.
I'm gonna move off a little bit on like focusing on AP classes and just ask like a simple question about, did you guys know about dual enrollment coming into high school as like a freshman?
Okay, I definitely knew about dual enrollment, and I think my point of view is probably going to be a lot different than like everyone sitting here. And the reason I kind of knew that I would have to go toward AP was, first off, I feel like I don't want to stay in Florida my whole life. I kind of want to go to college out of state, and I know that AP is a lot more efficient for that, especially because dual enrollment and credit and stuff gets really blurred when you talk about leaving Florida. And I don't get my license until the middle of junior year, in January of junior year. So for Valencia's campus, one of the rules is like if you're not 16 or if you're not driving there by yourself, like your parent has to stay on campus with you, and that's just not efficient. Like it doesn't really make sense for that. So dual enrollment probably just isn't a reality for me anytime soon.
I also agree with what you're saying, primarily because I really think that dual enrollment is catered to those who want to stay in their state, or specifically in their city, because I know that Valencia, you just get a straight shot to UCF. That's just how it works. And that's perfect for those who want to start off in a smaller class and work their way up to other universities that actually have bigger classes and big lecture halls, and it's very different than high school or even a community college. So I think that's great if that's what you want to do. I also think it's catered to people who have a very long career. If you have a very long career, for example, like a medical career, and you want to be a doctor specifically, that is very, very long. My cousin has been in school for 13 years, and he is 29 and is a neurosurgeon, but he never took a break. He just did a straight shot of school. And so I think dual enrollment would have really, really helped him, because he would have been able to kind of cut his lack of social time and overall college experience in half, and he would have been able to still enjoy the college experience but not have to dwell on it for 13 years, which is a very, very long time with no breaks. But I do think that AP is very beneficial, and you can still get that college immersion aspect of it because there are other programs like Blueprint, which is a popular program. They have one at UF specifically that allows you to stay for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to just immerse yourself in not only the curriculum, but you're able to stay in a dorm and truly just understand what it means to be a college student and what that entails. And I think that's a really great opportunity for people who don't want to take dual enrollment because they want to go out of state, but they still want to be able to understand what it entails to be a college student.
Personally, for me, when I first heard of dual enrollment, it was through my brother who graduated from this school, and I had heard a lot of bad things about it, but that was because of him. So I knew that when I got into high school, I knew that that was something that I wanted to do because I wanted that college opportunity. I wanted to be able to get into a college, even if it's in my city, only if it's in my city, to be able to be immersed in, like how Annabella was saying. That's what it's like aimed at, but I have an opportunity to be able to go out of state for college. And even though that's not what dual enrollment is aimed towards, I still believe it will really impact me in my choices and my future. By doing dual enrollment, it'll help me better.
I mean, I would have to disagree with the whole, if you're doing dual enrollment, you're most likely wanting to stay in-state and go to an in-state college. That's completely opposite of what I've wanted to do my whole entire life, but I basically came to the conclusion when I was doing dual enrollment classes that if I can attain my AA degree in high school and only have to go to an in-state college for 2 years, I was going to take that opportunity because me getting my bachelor's degree half paid for sounded really good to just me in general. And if I can take 2 years to get a bachelor's degree and then be able to get a master's degree in whatever state I wanted to earlier than anyone who's now taking like AP classes, then that's what I was going to do because I just wanted to be able to attain my master's early in life.
All right, so what do you guys think about AP versus dual enrollment student schedule? I know that I think a lot of people, when they hear AP, they kind of associate it with homework and like outside of school studying, blah, blah, blah. But I honestly feel like dual enrollment schedules are more stressful, especially like if you're taking night classes. If you come to, like I know people who do dual enrollment who come to school and then go straight from school to a class and they don't leave that class till like 8 o'clock. So I know that there's a lot of association with AP classes being like workload heavy, but I feel like dual enrollment schedules aren't easy either, you know?
Yeah, I understand because I took an AP class for a year, and that was one of the most stressful classes I've ever had to take. But when taking a dual enrollment class, it's a completely different stress level than what you would think it would be. There's tutors and professors that are there to help you constantly, but the amount of work that you get and the amount of time that you have to spend at and on campus is crazy. Like I end school here at like around 12 o'clock and I get an hour to do all my homework here. And then I head straight to Valencia until 5 p.m. and then I have things after school that I have to do. So it's a big stress level and workload. And I think that if you're willing to put in the time, then obviously it's going to work out for you. But you have to be really skilled at certain things that obviously are incorporated into AP as well. But like mainly time management is a big deal for I think both classes.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have never taken dual enrollment, but I definitely think it would be a little bit hard sometimes because when you're in college, like you usually do not take 7 classes like you do in high school because that would just be like a lot, and because you have more time in the classrooms and you have more homework, and it's just a lot of stuff you have to do compared to AP. So I think when you're so I just think when you're when you're going to school already at Boone and then you go straight to a dual enrollment class, it's just harder sometimes because you have to not only work on the stuff you have for your 5 or 6 other classes, but also the workload for another class. And so it's kind of like you're taking on more work than a regular college student would have, which is, I mean, I'm great if you can handle it, but it's definitely, I feel like, a lot more work than if you just took AP classes at your school.
Okay, so one of my teachers just handed me that the school is working on a curriculum guide for next year that has, like, talking about AP classes at Boone, and it has, like, what the course is about, an average weekly homework, stuff like that. But for me, I feel like even with this, like, whenever people ask about, like, hours of homework or, like, even more, like, even broader questions, like, I've been asked, okay, let me start over. So I feel like a lot of stuff being talked about is super subjective when it comes to AP classes. Like, and when you hand me a sheet of paper that says average weekly homework is 3 to 4 hours, like, I really honestly do not take that into consideration, because 3 hours for me can be 1 hour for her, it can be 5 hours for someone else. And so I feel like, you know, and 3 to 4 hours to me might not sound like a lot, while to someone else it does. I also feel like I don't know, sometimes giving information can be more harm than good. If someone sees this sheet and they see, like, this large list of things that they're gonna be going over, it might scare them away when it's really not that bad, if that makes sense.
Okay, so to wrap up this episode, I think we all have different viewpoints on AP dual enrollment, but I'm glad that we all came to the conclusion that it's beneficial to different types of students, and knowing what you're getting into and having that knowledge with you throughout high school is really valuable to anyone who takes any class. So I think that's it.
This concludes today's episode of the Brave View podcast. Hope you enjoyed listening.